Hey guys, this week's episode is basically focused on either huge investments in the drinks industry or taxes. Everybody's talking about taxes and they mean a lot to the industry in a good and in a bad way, or as the main character of almost every article on the internet would say, it's all about taxes and we want to make our country great again. But can you really make your country great again when you introduce taxes and start kind of a trade war? We will talk about that, and we will have a look on the companies that will invest big in these tough times in the drinks industry. Let's go. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 232, February the 1st. And today is the day where the UK starts with its new tax system. But before we talk about that, we want to have a look on the US drinks industry, because every single year the Silicon Valley Bank publishes its report on the current state of the industry. There are many facts mentioned that we have already talked about on the podcast. And to sum this up, the total wine category sales in 2024 saw a decrease, low-digit amount between 1% and 3%, but there was a decrease. Again, the weighted average of wineries produced a 3.4% revenue decline, so wineries are earning less. The top quarter is seeing an average of 22% revenue growth, which also shows that there is a shift in consumer behavior and the focus on premiumization is still or will be a thing in the future. Wholesale-heavy wineries fared worse than direct-to-consumer focused brands, which is also a good trend and also quite logical. Tasting room visitations are predicted to be slower in 2025 compared to 2024, and we saw a decline in the average price level. And we have talked about the sometimes really crazy prices when it comes to wine tastings for the normal and for the reserve tastings. Napa Valley averaging between $90 and $120, and they saw a decline in the prices, adjusting to less people being attracted by these tastings. California and Washington planted acreage exceed demand, while Oregon is closer to being in balance with demand. And 42% of the winery survey respondents said they will take a small price increase in 2025, which may profit the difficult situation and the oversupply of the market. So more focus on earning more and lowering the costs. And I mean, these are difficult times, and maybe the taxes that might come with Donald Trump will be a positive factor for the US drinks industry, because when you have to pay taxes for importing drinks from Canada, from Mexico, from Europe, from wherever, it will definitely support the local, the regional, the domestic industry. But on the other side, I mean, people are interested in their favorite brands and their favorite drinks from abroad, and maybe they just stop buying anything. And secondly, it will also have an impact on the general trade, because this only can lead to trade wars. So Canada is saying, okay, we won't accept US drinks anymore. There are so many crazy things currently happening, and everybody is speculating, and we just should wait. We just have to sit that out. But some countries and some companies are already preparing for what will come in the future. And another thing that Trump was talking a lot about were mass deportations. And of course, the industry is afraid, the country is afraid, because just to give you some numbers, over 70% of the people in the US working in agriculture were not born in the United States. And especially in areas such as California, where the percentage might be even higher, the industry is preparing. Of course, the people are afraid what will happen. Do we have to fear being deported to Mexico, to Puerto Rico, wherever we were coming from, or at least where our ancestors were coming from? Currently, some companies are preparing to help people like that. And in response to the President Donald Trump's election, the nonprofit Puertas Abiertas is working with other local nonprofits in California to form a new Napa Valley coalition. Their mission is to help undocumented immigrants prepare for the president's mass deportation plans. This can only have negative impact on the drinks industry, on agriculture industry, and hopefully they find a solution at least right in between, because usually we know that Trump is quite focused and stubborn when it comes to decisions. Nothing has been fixed yet, but there were many decisions he has already taken which will have an impact on the industry. Taxes and mass deportation are only two of them we might have to expect in the future. We stay in the US, and I would like to go on with some positive news. In Oregon, there is a winery called Brooks, which is quite familiar for the people who are working in the industry or might be interested in Oregon wines. Brooks Winery, famous one, big one, recently recognized that there are more people that are interested in low and non-alcoholic drinks. And they weren't able to feed the demand. So what they did is they started tasting so many different alcohol-free drinks to set up their own non-alcoholic flight. So when people come to the winery and they have to drive, or they are just not interested in drinking, but they're interested in the story right now, they can be satisfied as well. What they are offering is a so-called adult non-alcoholic wines flight, a flight of 5 for $25, which is quite affordable, I would say. And there are 5 alcohol-free drinks on the list. Lights from Germany, a Riesling, Oddbird, Sparkling Rosé, then another Riesling from Lights. The first one is with bubbles, and Serena Mode Sauvignon Blanc, and the Oddbird GSM Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre. So quite an interesting pairing. And they said, we tasted so many things, and we figured out that these 5 are the ones that are able to replace or represent the category, replace traditional wines or represent the category of alcohol-free wines in a good way. They don't have their own alcohol-free products. They are thinking about it, but currently they just say, let's bring the best of both worlds together and tell our story from the winery, give people the feeling that they are accepted, and offer them alcohol-free drinks. And for me, the first thing I thought was, why in the world do I, as a winery, offer the wines of other companies at my place? But on the other side, if you have people coming in and you are not able to satisfy them with your own alcohol-free products, before losing them, you'd rather say, well, I have something for you. You can see what might be possible in the future at our place, but at least is already possible in the world of alcohol-free wines. To me, this is super smart. And I mean, it also depends on how strong your brand might be. And Brooks is a strong brand, is a well-known winery in the area of Oregon. Maybe this is easier for them. On the other side, smart marketing, peer group oriented, and maybe in the future we will see maybe a Pinot Noir from Oregon that has been de-alcoholized. I don't know. I always like the idea of having both worlds in parallel and offering people a choice. And this is what they did, and this is what makes this a very smart decision, actually. We crossed the ocean to France, where 2 news have been published this week, which were also quite important and impacting the world of alcohol-free drinks and the world of alcohol. As we all know, France has a problem with oversupply, and this is why the government launched the pull-out scheme, offering millions of euro for the industry to pull out vines that might not be productive anymore, or people just cannot use to produce more and more, usually cheap quality wine. And on the other side, instead of pulling out vines and just getting rid of wines you have been stuck on in the cellar, you can use them to de-alcoholize them and offer alcohol-free products. And this is something that some people might not relate closely with France, because France is a quite traditional wine region, and some people are still like, no, go away, we need the alcohol in the drink. Fine, it's a part of culture. But there are companies that are jumping on the train saying, we want to offer an alternative. And the government said, well, we recognize that, and we can offer you something important. since 2024, France is allowed to offer something called Vin de France désalcoolisé. So you are allowed to label that your wine's origin is France. They have been de-alcoholized, and then you are still allowed to use Vin de France on your label. So especially in a country of like France, or I mean, it's quite similar with Italy or with Spain, where people are very, very closely related to their origins, PGI, PDO wines, and the wine law plays a very important role when it comes to the identity and the style of a wine. This is something that might help getting rid of overproduction, getting access to a peer group that currently might not be interested in alcohol-free wines, and again, offering alternatives. Maybe we will see more de-alcoholized wine from France. There are currently some companies working in the de-alcoholization, and one of them is located in the area around Bordeaux, a partner of Moderato Wines. They have de-alcoholized the wines of Moderato, and they will go on with that in the future. And then something happened that might be unexpected for some people. I would call it Lion's Den. Two businesswomen opened an alcohol-free bottle shop in Bordeaux, in the heart of wine culture in France. Two women say, well, we'll open a bottle shop just offering alcohol-free drinks. And they started, of course, mostly with wines from France, with Moderato, with Bolle. I still don't know how to pronounce them. The shop is called Belle Grappe, so beautiful grapes, kind of a wordplay. And they have been on almost every single news this week. I contacted them via LinkedIn because I would be so excited in hearing their story, where the idea came from and how it is currently going, how the people are accepting it. And I mean, Bordeaux is also famous for Michelin star restaurants, for fine dining, for just like a lively world of gastronomy and hospitality. And I'm pretty sure that the gastronomy is also interested in having alcohol-free products on the menu, even though the majority might still be interested in wine. So this is definitely a door opener for B2B and B2C. And the next time I'll be in Bordeaux, I will walk through the door and will say, hey, tell me your story. If I haven't managed to get them on the podcast, I would love to have you guys on the podcast. So if you're listening, let's talk about your crazy project and the investment in the future of alcohol-free drinks. And talking about investments in alcohol-free drinks, one of the biggest companies, the family Torres, Familia Torres in Spain, is about to invest 6 million euro in a winery that is dedicated to non-alcoholic wines. And if you don't know that, the brand Natureo, which is owned by Torres, is seen to be a pioneer in the alcohol-free drinks industry in Central Europe. They have been experimenting with alcohol-free drinks over 10 years, and these are well-made products. They have been developed over 10 to 15 years, and they are made in a way that they are suitable for many palates, which brought them a huge success. And right now, Torres says, we will focus more on alcohol-free drinks and invest €6 million in a winery that is dedicated strictly to alcohol-free drinks. So maybe they will expand the product range, but maybe they would just double down on production, because there is a huge demand for that, and many supermarkets have already listed the product. And maybe, I mean, it's Spain, and Spain is usually said to be a country where it is easier to produce organic grapes. Maybe Torres is also aiming towards offering organic de-alcoholized wines. We talked about that. The law has changed, and under specific circumstances, you might be allowed to offer de-alcoholized wines that have been made organically beforehand and that are allowed to carry the label of organic wine. So Torres, another big player in the market, interested in alcohol-free drinks, seeing the trend and investing heavily. And then there is an article when we talk about successful brands or brands investing in alcohol-free drinks. There is a brand called Boll. I still don't know if it's Boll, Bolli, Bolle. Let's call them Boll. And they gave an interview to Dry Atlas, highly recommended. Dry Atlas is one of my favorite sources when it comes to news from the alcohol-free industry. They gave an interview on their production method. And when I first read the headline, I was shocked. The headline is How Bols Double Fermentation is Changing the Non-Alc Wine Game. And for those of you who are not familiar with non-alcoholic wines or dealcoholized wines, usually every dealcoholized product starts with a product with full-strength alcohol, so either beer or wine, and then you pull it through a process of dealcoholization, either with filtering or with distillation. Usually it's either vacuum distillation or reverse osmosis. And what happens during the dealcoholization is that the original product, the wine, the beer, loses between, I would say, 30 to 70% of its original character, resulting in lighter body, less tasty, this is subjective, but a low amount of flavors and aromas, structure and complexity, lack and change. That's just a change in structure and complexity. And many companies struggle with having a still tasty and high quality product in the end. And you can balance the lack of body with sugar. So usually companies add sugar to give some body back to the drink. But this also results in drinks that might be too sweet depending on the balance of acidity and sugar. And what the company Boll is doing, they make a wine, then they de-alcoholize it, resulting in this 30 to 7% less final product. Then they re-add yeast and grape juice and go through a second fermentation. But this yeast is a special yeast. It's a yeast string that produces just a very, very tiny amount of alcohol, resulting in maybe a malolactic fermentation or something. It's a huge mystery. Yeah, they're talking about it like it's a secret. They have registered 2 patents and still waiting for the approval. So it's more kind of a secret, mystified story. But let's call it a double fermentation, a second fermentation with yeast, with grape juice, and resulting in a final product that is high in body, high in taste, or high in taste. Well, some people say better in taste, but it's like, it's more intense, it's more aromatic, and it has the power, the structure, the body, the structure, and the complexity that might attract more people while drinking. The problem is, when we talk about sustainability, about an approach that is closer to nature, respecting the amount of energy needed for the process, CO2 footprint, stuff like that, a double fermentation doesn't sound right to me. And of course, some people might say now, well, yeah, just get rid of the first fermentation and only ferment grape juice with these specific yeast strings. This could work, and there are many companies working like that. We had Wilbrich on the interview over here. They basically do similar things with herbs, spices, fruits that are macerated and then fermented with yeast that don't produce any alcohol. But the problem is with juice, the sugar levels are too high. So in the end, you might have a really interesting product, but the sugar level might be too high for a bigger peer group. It definitely sounds interesting, and I will try to I will try to taste these products either at Wine Paris or Pro Wine in Düsseldorf if they might be in place. Still, by all this hype we are talking about when it comes to alcohol-free drinks, we should consider the alcohol, the energy consumption during the production of those products. And then again, to sum this up, dealcoholized wine are necessary to drive the success of the category and to offer these, as I call them, bridge products to bring people from more alcohol to less alcohol consumption. But on the other side, if we are talking about high quality, about tasty drinks, about structured, complex drinks that are suitable for food pairing, we might have a look on the other side where sparkling tea is waiting, where spirits are waiting, where products are waiting that might have gone through a fermentation but without alcohol and sitting at a very low sugar level. And these proxies, as we usually call them, are more interesting for gastronomy, and listening to people that are successful in the industry, such as Lukas Mattis from Keinelo in Austria and Vienna, focus on the proxies when it comes to wine and gastronomy to food pairing and gastronomy because they offer what people are looking for. And the alcoholized wine and beer are more focused on B2C because people are, looking for something to drink, to enjoy without alcohol. If I get my hands on a bottle of Boll, I will let you know and write down my tasting notes and share also my opinion. And of course, if I will be able to talk to the founders or the winemakers, it would be interesting to know what their thoughts on production, sustainability, and the process are. Last but not least, when we talk about successful companies going alcohol-free, we have talked about the famous brand Athletic Brewing in the US. They started in 2016, started small, bootstrapped the company, then some investors came in, and in the end, today, with a huge success and spread almost everywhere in the United States, the company is worth $800 million. And of course, this is maybe a blueprint for the industry, but also, when you listen to the founder, it's a mix between being lucky, being at the right place at the right time, and also putting a huge effort in everything they were doing. And then there is this question, could this happen again? And when you scan the world of alcohol-free beer especially, there are only few big players. When we talk about startups revolutionizing the world of alcohol-free drinks, especially in Central Europe, we can talk about Brewdog maybe, and we can talk about Impossibrew. Impossibrew is a beer company that went on the Dragon's Den, which is basically like a Shark Tank in the UK, in 2022 and asked for a funding. Impossibrew offers alcohol-free beers and aims to grow the business further to restaurants, internationally, export, whatever, and they needed a funding. The investors in the Dragon's Den told them, sorry guys, you are too early in 2022. So they went away, bootstrapped it again, and right now they built a company which started at £1,000 sales a month to over £700,000 a month. And right now, to grow further, they need investment again, and they set up a crowdfunding. And the goal was to get £500,000 during the crowdfunding. And after 35 minutes, they have reached a level of 500,000. And after 24 hours, they were sitting at £1.2 million through crowdfunding, around about 1,000 investors, and it's still going. Yeah, the crowdfunding is set up for another 10 or 11 days when you're listening to this. So if you're interested in that and you want to be part of a company like this, check out the link in the show notes and you can be part of a growing alcohol-free brand. This is no investment advice at all, guys. It's barely seen in the market, especially with alcohol-free drinks, and just the story is super impressive. So if you want to have a second look on that, the link is in the show notes. And talking about crazy and weird things in the UK, this is a story that even made it to Germany on the boulevard desk newspaper we have in Germany, the Bild Zeitung. There is a Lidl in Northern Ireland that won a legal battle in court to being able to open a pub in a store. They tried this several times, and there is this rule in Northern Ireland that you can only get a license for selling alcohol when either one business is closing or you are able to purchase the license from another business or so. And they tried this twice and weren't successful, and right now they won the legal battle, and in Dundonald, north of Belfast, they will be allowed to build a pub in the Lidl store. So while browsing through your supermarket purchases, you can have a beer, you can sit down, you can relax, and you can also buy alcohol in the pub and take it home with you. I don't know if this is good or bad, at least talking about the cultural aspect. The area around Dundonald had a pub which had to close, and then, it's not just a restaurant or a bar. A pub usually, especially in the UK, is the center of cultural life in a village, in a city. And when one pub has to close, we talked about many pubs that had to close over the last 3 to 5 years, it's been thousands. So this could be an option to, let's say, recultivate the life in this area. I don't know if this has to be in a Lidl store, and still talking about a discounter being closely related to a pub. This sounds awkward to me, but this is just my personal opinion. On the other side, for Lidl, this is a huge thing. I mean, it's marketing. People are talking about it. It can bring more customers either for buying alcohol or buying the rest of the stuff that is available in the supermarket. So, well, yeah, it's, again, we want to talk about weird, crazy, and also successful and smart things in marketing. And they will use this way further than it has gone so far. And maybe there will be, I don't know, a Lidl beer or something like this in the future you can get from the tap in Northern Ireland. And the last section of this podcast is dedicated to taxes. Yeah. And I would like to start with Dubai. Dubai has lifted the alcohol taxes in 2023, prolonged it for one more year. And right now in 2025, they reinstalled 30% alcohol taxes in Dubai. And of course, this will affect the businesses around there. And this will also mean a lot to people, to companies importing to Dubai. It is expected that it will have an influence, but only on a smaller part of the peer group for alcohol in Dubai, because most of them are still able to afford 30% price increase because they just earn enough to be able to afford stuff like that. And secondly, Abu Dhabi is very, very close. And there is a bottle shop right on the corner of Abu Dhabi. So just across the border, you are able to to buy your alcohol, your wine. And they expect a huge impact on their business. They are already preparing of the hundreds of people coming from Dubai to buy alcohol in the store. So this would be at least good for a business on the other side of the border. But talking to the two main importers in Dubai, of course they are afraid. And they said, we try to keep the prices stable, at least for January. But I mean, 30% increase through taxes is a lot. And you have to have a huge margin to cover that. So I think we will see rising prices in February or in March. And the importers expect a change in their business, in their wine sales, of course, because they said, without the taxes, we were able to attract tourists and the locals to try things out, to explore the world of wine, of spirits, of alcohol. And right now, this will decrease and people will be less interested because some just might not be able to afford it. But again, focusing on the better situated peer group, they will still be able to sell products. And again, I know I'm repeating myself every single time, talking about the Arab countries, if you have an alcohol-free brand, this might be something to look at. Last but not least, talking about the taxes. The UK implemented a tax system in 2023 where, based on the alcohol level you have in the final product, you had to pay taxes. And this was regulated with different levels, up to 11.5, then 11.5 to 14.5, and further on. And they said, we will change that with the beginning of February 2025. So from today on, there is a new tax law implemented in the UK. Before we have a look at the numbers, if you have a product and it's either imported to the UK or it's produced in the UK, you take the net price, then you have to add the alcohol tax, and then you add the VAT of 20%. So the alcohol tax is also part of the price where the VAT is put on. This is it's a tiny effect, but it is important to look at this. And when we have a look at the new alcohol duty system, it's a very long paper. I put the link in the show notes, and a short summary was mentioned in the Daily Express. And what we can see here is that every single product with alcohol between 6 and 15% is getting more expensive, higher taxes, except the ones with 11.5% alcohol. There's a small decline of, 12 pence. The rest is getting a bit more expensive, and then you have to add the VAT, resulting in bottles of, let's say, 9 to 10 pounds, where almost half of it is just taxes. And this can be good or bad, depending on which side you're standing. Talking about higher quality, meaning if you are interested in drinking less but better, you get more attracted to the higher priced products because you know that a smaller part of them is taxes and the bigger part is the quality. And you might switch from a 10-pound bottle to a 15 or 20-pound bottle, or you might overthink your drinking behavior with something that is imported from another country and switching to wines from the UK. There are great wines made in the UK, guys. So if you have never tried that, try it. And on the other side, the good thing is that usually due to the climate, the wines from the UK sit between, I would say, 9 to 12% alcohol. There are lower taxes on them because the things that are imported from warmer climates, from France, from Italy, from Spain, the average alcohol level is higher, so the taxes are also higher that you have to pay on those products. Of course, it's a thing the industry has to deal with, and might be from the Wine and Spirits Trade Association tried to moderate with the government, but unfortunately it didn't work out, and right now the people have to live with it, and they will see an increase in booze prices from today. And secondly, there is another tax that has to be added to the products, and it will be a double hit at the latest in April, because they are also introducing a waste packaging recycling fee to producers, which usually they would just give to the importers, to the distributors, or to the final customers. So we will have a double tax hit on the booze prices, affecting the booze prices in the UK. And I mean, the government usually is aiming towards having a lower alcohol consumption. This is also a part of this paper, the explanation why they're introducing the taxes and how this could positively impact the health system of the UK. On the other side, of course, importers, distributors will sell less. We talked about that last episode. Some companies, some brands importing to the UK are also already adjusting their alcohol levels from 13.5 to 11.5, for example. And in addition, something we haven't talked about, there is also an impact on products being imported to the UK. So when we have a look at the companies with the biggest imports to the UK, we're talking about France, Italy, New Zealand, Australia, and Spain. And we're talking about millions of pounds. And in addition, there is the spirits market, and there are also big amounts of spirits coming from Mexico, from Belgium, and the Netherlands. And they all will be affected by the taxes you have to add when at the latest they are imported to the UK. So they will also decrease. So if you are a company that relies on exports to the UK, you might consider this in your price strategy as well. And if you are able to adjust your alcohol levels, it definitely might be an option. This is it for this week, guys. Big investments, huge tax discussions. Nevertheless, have a great weekend. See you on Wednesday.